so much fun.
Things did go wrong on occasion.
Now, we're in it, and it could go bad, or it could go great, and it usually,
I'm Jeffrey Bean, and I played Caden in the New York premiere of the Thanksgiving play at Playwrights Horizons.
Hey, my name is Alexandra Henrikson, and I played Alicia at the Geffen Playhouse. And we did the show last year. We were in rehearsals around this time. So, satire.
Well, I think it's important that we don't take ourselves too seriously ever, and never feel as though we have arrived at some destination. There's always room for us to self-examine and question how we're responding to particular issues. And satire, has the ability to educate without alienating. And I think Larissa's feeling is that you attract more people to the issue if you can get them laughing with you about it than if you're very serious and ponderous and holier than thou.
It's my favorite genre, I would say. I'm a big believer in Brecht and not feeling comfortable. I don't think we learn when we're comfortable. So, do you really learn anything from watching, like, The Bachelor? No. You just go to turn your brain off. This is not that kind of show. And so that's what I really loved about it was, I think comedy involves recognition. When Jerry Seinfeld says, like, what's the deal with airplane peanuts? You go, I do think airplane peanuts are weird. So I think in this show, if you're laughing, it's because you see something in yourself and or you recognize a part of yourself in these characters. And for me with Alicia, I recognized so many things.
And the most rewarding aspect of it, of course, was, this was the first play by an Indigenous person produced in New York City. I was proud to be a part of that, for sure. And it was incredibly rewarding to work on this play with that particular group of people. Moritz and Greg and Jennifer and Margot and Larissa and the team at Playwrights Horizons, which is just a fantastic place for actors and writers, I think, The
most rewarding part, I think, was doing Indigenous Peoples Night. That was so much fun. All the, there's a lot of jokes in this play that work on one level and then work on another level, and it was great because it was like every joke landed. Half of the audience was Indigenous folks. The other half of the audience was, white subscribers. Like, everyone was laughing together at the absurdity of how we educate people in this country. And that, look, as an actress and a comedic actress, all you want in the world is to make someone laugh. And then if you can make people laugh and think.
But you're right. It's a tricky line, and it's it's like walking a balance beam when you're performing it. You can go too far over the edge and fall off one way, or you can go too far the other way and fall off. And you have to really sort of keep it on that very narrow beam for it to land properly.
All the time. I don't think there was a show that we didn't break on stage.
I'm not sure that we ever broke on stage.
I feel like when we first started rehearsing the play, we were very serious and dutiful.
But in rehearsal, all bets were off. All right, we laughed a tremendous amount in rehearsal, and then we got our act together.
Actually, it's a satire. It's a sketch. It's about making you laugh and think. There's something Brechtian about it, where you, I think that's the real challenge for the actor, is how do you keep the ball in the air when there's a plot, but it's also very fragmented. You get that with the interstitial moments. So, I think that one of the ways we kept the ball in the air was by keeping each other on our toes. And especially our Jackson, When he would come out as Major John Mason, he would always have a different accent. Luckily, I was facing upstage, so that helped.
Greg Keller in particular was very hard to work with in that regard because he was constantly cracking me up. He's just one of the funniest people I've ever worked with. And so he was constantly getting me, and I think took a kind of perverse pleasure in it. But you'd have to ask him. Well, for the most part, audiences seem to enjoy it a lot. And I think particularly the younger demographic. And the play extended beyond its original run because of the popularity of it. And the only controversy I'd say surrounding it is that some people, particularly some of the older audience members, felt compelled to ask, well, what if we're not supposed to be woke, then what are we supposed to be, you know? And I think ultimately the answer to that question of, you know, what does the play want from us is action. It's not enough to demonstrate your wokeness. You need to act and change, create change in the culture as a whole. Of course, the severed bloody heads were controversial. That was a bridge too far for some people.
Oh, and those heads.
And, you know, you would sort of feel that in the audience. You know, there'd be times you'd pull those heads out and there would sort of be a gasp and a lot of silence. And then there'd be other times where they were on the ride and they could go there with you.
Those heads, the idea was in our production, they wanted them to look like turkeys. That like we had gone into the cafeteria and gotten turkeys and then stuffed them with fake blood and put like war paint on them and all that kind of stuff. And so it was really like aggressive and hilarious because it was so misplaced. And those heads, some nights there would be so much blood on the stage that we were tripping and falling. Some nights no blood would like come out at all. It'd just be a trickle because something happened. So it was like constantly like trying to get enough blood on, and then I would take the blood and like paint like war paint on and be like, yeah, this is it, we're making art. And that's so stupid and funny. And so that was always kind of the like, all right, once the heads come out, we're in it. And it could go bad or it could go great. And it usually, you know, there was also a woman in the front row wearing all white. That was so bad.
The underlying issues in this are extremely important, which is that we recognize how we have appropriated the culture without lifting it up. And right now, you know, as Larissa pointed out in a lot of the talkbacks, her people are dying. They still are dying. The sort of the atrocities of the 19th century are not ended. And we just have to acknowledge how much action and change is required of us.
I think that this play is hilarious if you're willing to laugh at yourself. For me, being able to laugh at myself and admit that there's a lot of story I didn't get, and now seeing how the education system in our country doesn't tell both sides of the story. And I believe that there's room for all the narratives.
Well, I'm sure anybody associated with the production would tell you that for me, the hardest thing was the turkey costume that I had to wear at the very beginning of the play. I had a very elaborate turkey costume that weighed a gajillion pounds, and my tail feathers were always breaking off, and I couldn't really fit on stage, fit through the entrance on the stage. It was just it became somewhat my nemesis, even though it was a fantastic costume. And the first thing you would see of the play was that costume. And it was a great, striking beginning image. So I was willing to suffer and take one for the team because the end effect was quite worth it. But it is a funny play, and we had a great deal of fun rehearsing it and performing it.